Hi, folks, and welcome to Film Optimist, where we talk about all things film with a generous dose of optimism. I'm your co-host, Seth Boyd,
I am Megan Tierney.
and with us today is a author, a writer of multiple mediums, a grief counselor, a friend, very importantly, and an entrepreneur. And we'll talk more about that in a moment. Jaime Metzgar, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks. That sounds probably a lot more impressive than it is, but thank you.
I don't know.
Hey, it
You're a very
counts.
impressive person.
Yes, ma'am.
Consider who you're talking to here. We don't have those accolades, so.
Yeah.
And folks, we have Jaime on here to talk about the Muppet Movie, and I am so excited that you picked this for many reasons. But one is the last full episode we did on a movie was a Werner Herzog film, so this is going to be quite a change of pace.
Yeah, this is about as different as it gets.
Yeah, very delighted. I think the Muppet Movie means a lot to a lot of different people, and I want to kind of hear from everybody what it means to them. But Jean, would you mind, as the person who picked it, starting for that, of like why you chose it, and just kind of give us your overview pitch of it?
Well, it is the perfect film in a nutshell. No, it's obviously, I'm Gen X. It is nostalgia. It is just nostalgia in a film. I watched the Muppet Show every time it was on. Love the Muppets. And it's just a fun, clever, very optimistic film. They're just, Kermit is the nicest soul on the planet. And it's just all about friendship and trying to see their dreams come true. So it's just a really sweet, heartfelt, some really weird dark undertones, goofy Jim Henson. I mean, it's just a really, when you kind of pick it apart, it's an interesting film.
Which we will, absolutely. I have to ask, because like Megan and I were talking about this, and I didn't get Megan's answer, but like I don't recall the first time I saw this movie. This is a movie I saw so many times as a kid that I can't remember, can't even conceive of what it would be like to watch this movie the first time. Do you recall that? And had you seen like the Muppet Show before you saw the movie? Like, did you have an expectation of what the movie would be?
I mean, I think I was 5 when it came out, so I don't think my expectations were too high, but it was, but it was also a weird time, right? Because this was right around the time that like Star Wars came out.
Right.
So there were a lot of like really big films that you'd never really seen before. And I was terrified of Star Wars. So I think I was more than happy when my mom took me to see the Muppet Movie because I loved the Muppet Show. And for me, I was just like, yes, okay, this one I can handle.
Are you still scared of Star Wars?
I still hide my face in my mom. Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
I was so scared of the stormtroopers. They terrified me.
That's fair.
Fair enough.
I mean, it is a war-based movie, basically, just up in space.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
So, oh my goodness, I was so scared. Like I would close my ears and hide. But yeah, so the Muppets were a great antidote to
that. Fantastic. And Megan, kind of the same question. They're obviously a fan of the Muppet Movie. What does it mean to you when you saw it the first time, or any other key memories?
Well, to be honest, I will be honest here that this is my first watch of the Muppet Movie.
Oh my God.
Very first watch. So Seth and I were talking
That's
about...
That's why you do a podcast, folks. So you can help your friends watch a movie you assume they've watched before.
This is a very characteristic, Jamie, I'll say, of like, Seth knows these movies, basically every movie we've done on the podcast, and I come into it being like, this is my first time, and this is one of the moments, this is my first time. I mean, it's kind of totally a cultural phenomenon that I skipped. I think it's one of those generational things that Seth and I were talking about, because I was like a Sesame Street kid growing up, very much so. I mean, I was like Teletubbies kid growing up, so kind of later 90s there for me. Right. But it's kind of funny that we were talking about like Star Wars also, because I was a huge we had the luxury of going to Disneyland often as children, and they acquired basically the Muppets is what I believe, but also they created this really great like 4D show, like live show, including animatronic puppets in Disney California Adventure that we would frequent often, because also probably because that it was like an air-conditioned nice room in Disney that you can just throw your kids in and the parents can sit down and say thank God for 15 minutes. So that was a big part of our trip, but the tenements of the movie came out very much so in the in the show. So a little props to Disney there for like doing it justice. But so in that regard, the movie actually felt a little familiar, and I was familiar at least with pretty much majority of the characters. They were all in the show, and the show is like them doing a little Broadway production, basically the same almost plot lines of the movie. So there was a lot of parallels, and that's a memory that I've had for forever growing up. But yeah, this is my first go of the actual movie, so that was a treat, real treat.
This is by far the most surprising movie you have not seen.
I know.
not to make fun, but prior to this, I thought you would not. I was so surprised that you hadn't seen The Lighthouse, because that was some up your alley.
Yeah.
I didn't think.
I know.
And also the fact that the Muppets too was an animatronic live show, not. That's
Right.
a very unique perspective. I'm excited to get that.
I'm ashamed. I'm ashamed.
I mean, so you mentioned Sesame Street, and weirdly,
Yeah,
has mentioned the show before. I have very strange conservative homeschool Christian background. I was not allowed to watch Sesame Street because I think they thought it would turn me gay,
right.
which happened without that. But
I mean,
I could watch the Muppets.
Did the Muppets turn you gay?
I don't think. Maybe that's what it was. Fozzie Bear.
Fair.
But it was a very odd, like, what I could and cannot do. But like the Muppets were definitely like always kind of around, and I went probably a pretty big gap without watching this movie. And then my wife, to clarify for the folks who are first time here, I'm bi. My wife and I watched it, like, I think actually while we were wedding planning, and it was the first time either of us had seen it in a long time, and we pretty quickly decided the song we're gonna not walk down the aisle to, but after the ceremony's done, the song we're gonna leave is going to be Moving Right Along, which is what we went with. So
that's so cute. Oh my gosh.
That's awesome.
So after planning, it's a perfect song to do. It's perfect. You're moving right along. You're starting your life together, footloose and fancy free. So this movie gets me emotional in a very different kind of way too, of having an association like that. I also have, on a note of emotional, I just started teary immediately with hearing the opening song, the Why There's So Many Songs About Rainbows. It's like, I never expect to be just like floored by that, but every time Kermit gets me.
Yeah,
So
it's quite an opening number.
Yeah, I mean, I was gonna say a quick anecdote for me about that is that I did dance growing up, very like high school dance, very theatrical kind of dance. And we did a series. One of the shows was based on film soundtracks. Really cool. That was a fun show. And one of the songs was Rainbow Connection, the Kermit the Frog song. And I've heard that song even regardless of my little Disney show of the Muppets. But so I think that I mean, this soundtrack gets really high praise in like the music world. Like I think just in general. So, and specifically that song is what I knew very separately from the Muppets. Like it's kind of its own entity almost. They really like that one, and it's so sweet, so endearing. Like it's kind of like funny how its cultural phenomena comes about.
Yeah, as a kid, I had an old, it's little kid-sized turntable, and my brother and I would listen to the record of the Muppet Movie nonstop. So, we were not a lot of money growing up, so this was our entertainment. Like we would act out all the scenes, we knew all the words.
Cool.
So yeah,
that's very fun.
This does lead to the two obvious questions. We'll start with song. Do you have a favorite song from the soundtrack, Jamie?
Oh, Dr. Teeth and the Electric Mayhem. Always. Always. I also, I love Rainbow Connection as an actual song, but as far as over the topness, I love when something is completely ridiculous, but sung with the utmost sincerity. So Never Before and Never Again, the love song between Piggy and Kermit. It's hard to top that.
That's true. That's another one that's like, watching it again this time, I forgot how funny that was too, because it's like, I think it's like Rainbow Connection is a generally sweet, teary song. Never Before is funny, especially with the montage and the love at first sight thing, which I think is a joke that bothered me as a kid. I feel uncomfortable with, like, I don't want a romance in my movie because I was 4 or whatever, but now I was like, this is hilarious.
It's so funny.
It is great. And it's like, I don't know another, and in general, like I don't really watch that many like the Disney musicals, but I didn't really like most Disney movies as a kid because I didn't find them as funny as they should be. Like to me, if I'm watching a cartoon, like a kid's thing,
Mm,
I want it to be Bugs Bunny. I wanted a million jokes. So like even like The Lion King or something to me was kind of boring,
Mm.
that's
because there was too many serious songs in it. This movie, I think, for a kid has that kind of perfect balance of being generally very funny, and of course, as an adult, I think still very funny. Has some serious songs, has a lot of silly fun songs.
oh man.
Megan, same question. Did you have a favorite? Especially going in here, like where you presumably only heard one of the songs before.
True. Well, I feel you, Seth, but I'm almost the opposite. Like I was the Disney kid, and so, but it kind of
Yeah.
relates because now I'm almost so glad that I watched the movie for the first time as an adult. I think that I appreciate the music in this one now, the funniness, the over the
Mhm.
topness, the sincerity of it all, like much, and the joke of all of that also. Like I'm all about. I just was eating it up so much. The Electric Mayhem Band, that name is fantastic. I think they were like tickling my fancy a lot of being just hippie punks and and puppets at that. And that really was fun for me to see, basically.
And like in watching that now, it's like is Dr. Teeth's modeled after like Captain Beefheart with that hat and everything? He kind of seems to be. There's
Well,
like some
very
very strange,
I think he was also
musical.
kind of like Dr. John a little bit.
Oh,
right.
okay, yeah, Dr. John,
Yeah,
yeah,
but I mean, as a kid, and still, quite honestly, I want to be
right.
Janice. Like Janice is the coolest
I
Muppet on the planet. Like Janice is just it.
Yeah, that was gonna be my guess. For
Mhm.
you. Yes, is very cool, absolutely. I have not seen it yet, but I guess there's a. You mentioned Disney acquired them up now. There's like a show about the Dr. Teeth and Electric Mayhem trying to finally
Mm.
record their album because they've been huge forever, but I've never recorded an album. But you have like people from Motley Crue and other famous bands talking about how that's their favorite band and nobody rocks harder than Dr. Teeth. So have not checked that out, but I do love that this joke is still enduring.
But actually, that what you just said is a theme that if you notice throughout the movie, but also the Muppets in general. Okay, they're the
Mm,
biggest band, but they've never recorded an album. Kermit is
right,
kind of the manager of everything, but everything is always in chaos. Fozzie is a
right,
comedian, but he can't tell a joke. So that's something I love about the Muppets is that
right.
they're all just completely accepted as who they are, even though they kind of
Mm,
suck at what they do.
right. That's very true. They're not very good at it, and
Right.
the Kermit holds them together. But it's pure luck that they make it
Right.
to
Mhm.
the audition.
It almost felt like a newspaper comic character bunch to me, or something.
Mm,
Even like I think of like Charlie Brown almost, but really, I guess Sesame. I mean, it had parallel Sesame Street for that in that
sure.
regard for me too. But that's a good way to put it. They're kind of masters of none, all of
Yeah.
them.
Yeah, they all have this passion. Each of them has a
Mhm.
passion. I guess
Right,
except for Rolf, the piano player. Like he's good. Everyone else is
Mhm.
just kind of
right.
like not really that great.
It's true. Like I mean, even the scene of Kermit meeting Fozzie is trying to save him from having
Right.
bottles and everything thrown at him, like the Blues Brothers. It doesn't work. you know? Celebrity cameos. There's quite a few in this
Mm.
one, and I don't. I think. Do you have a favorite, Jamie? Is there one that kind of surprised you if you haven't seen it in a while as well?
Well, I love Carol Kane. I love that she just
Yes.
keeps coming back
Mm.
with that's a myth. I love
Right. That's
that Mel
great.
Brooks plays an evil German scientist.
Hmm.
And of course, I love at the end, the director,
Orson Welles.
Orson Welles. Yes, thank you. That he
Yes.
is the head honcho of everything. I think
Mm.
it's
Yes.
really well done.
If you're
Those
gonna
are
have
my
one person
favorites.
deliver just the one line, Orson Welles is pretty great to put
Mhm.
together the standard wealth and fame
And
package.
also just to be in a Muppet movie, like a cinematic giant in the
Right.
Muppet movie is just fantastic.
Right. That is such a great because I think he especially the fact that he's there is inherently funny, you
Right.
know.
Yes.
seeing Bob Hope and Steve Martin is also very fun.
Yeah.
Elliot Gould being there is fun, but just kind of random that he's doing the beauty pageant.
Almost my most surprising is Richard Pryor.
Oh,
He
that's
kind of
right. Yeah, I forgot Richard Pryor's in there. Yeah,
jumps out of it. For me, it was Richard Pryor, and then I love Steve Martin too, and him playing a
sure.
snooty waiter, annoyed at everybody is it's kind of fun. Like he was like I feel like everybody's kind of along for the ride, even the cameos and stuff, and he's the one that's just
Right.
no, and that's like almost a joke in of itself of his character. So really, really clever, like really clever
That's
stuff
true.
going on.
He's not there for them.
The self-awareness in basically everything going on in the Muppets is very fun.
And the cameos are also, I think, just really interesting because they're sort of very in line with the Muppet Show, because the Muppet Show is very vaudeville-esque. And so
Yes.
the fact that like Charlie McCarthy is there, Milton Berle, people that kind of came out of
Sure.
Mel Brooks came out of that vaudeville Borscht Belt circuit, I thought was a really, really kind of cool nod to the genesis of shows like that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I know you said you were pretty young when you saw this, but like that's something that I didn't even know the Muppet Show existed until like I was maybe 20 or something. So when you have like you out of everyone here has seen the most of both show and all that, is there anything that you think was particularly surprising that they accomplished in the movie that they couldn't have done in the show, or anything that seems like a real triumph?
Wow, you're getting deep here. Yeah, well, just like an actual plot line, right? Because the show was
Sure.
there was usually sort of a theme running throughout each show, but the theme was
Okay.
always kind of the same, which was Kermit trying to hold it together as the wheels are coming off. That was always what was happening.
Right.
But other than that, the show was short skits, usually based around who the human guest star was, like what their talent was. Like I don't know why I remember Bernadette Peters seared into my brain, but I remember her singing. So the fact that they could actually develop a longer plot line just around the Muppets and not based around what the guest stars' talents were, I thought was a big accomplishment.
Sure, that absolutely makes sense. And I am someone who making, of course, we've talked a lot before how much we enjoy practical effects. You can't get more practical than a Muppet. These are all hand controlled. This is not a CGI thing at all. So, and I know nothing about how puppeteering works, but it's very cool to just seeing Kermit on the bike. Is still
that stood out
incredible,
to me.
Yeah.
You really wonder how you have to think of how did they film that? Like, or is it stop motion? Like, what is going on? Like, you really have to kind of it was actually kind of incredible. That scenes in particular, I just thought, how did they film that? I really am not quite sure.
I did do a little research and didn't get too into it, but I heard that they only were able to film a minute a day.
Oh my goodness.
Which is not a whole lot, just because of how slow. That's more than a natural stop motion movie like Fantastic Mr. Fox or something. But still, I think it's like a 79-minute movie, and it was nearly 79-day shoot.
Wow.
So I believe Jim Henson was behind Emmett Otter's Jug Band Christmas as well.
Yes.
And there's some really good background information on that about how they made it and how labor intensive and detailed it is to try to have puppets come to life like this.
Oh, sure. Yeah. I have to check that out. I just, are you familiar with the outtakes of Emmett Otter's?
I know. I think just a little bit. I've watched kind of afterwards. Yeah.
So the woman who plays Emmett Otter was dubbed later. The actual puppeteer is Frank Oz, and there's like a 20-minute thing of Frank Oz kind of losing his mind as things aren't going great. That's pretty funny. So that is, I think, just him and Jim Henson like been there for a long time and doing the voice, but definitely swearing and not the type of thing you'd expect in Otter's Jug Band Christmas. Yeah, it certainly is impressive, and from my understanding, accomplishing things they couldn't and didn't need to do in the TV show in terms of, like you said, it's a variety show, it's sketches, and like you have that shot at the end with like over 100 Muppets singing. That's short, but that's impressive, incredible so there's kind of a joy in just seeing how many people come together in practical effects to make this movie on set.
Well, to your point about Disney acquiring the Muppets.
Sure.
The 2011 Muppet movie, I thought, was also really well done because it's so in the spirit of the original that it's one of the few times that I've seen a reboot that I thought, wow, good on you. You nailed this one.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that one. That's one I watch pretty often as well. Like I think they have a great cast with them. So Jason Segel and
Yeah.
then Amy Adams. You know, humans you want to see interacting with Muppets is great. Just all the cameos again you have with that one. That one I think holds up really well, and like I said, in the spirit of it, and kind of in the Jim Henson spirit, talks about some serious things too, with some of those darker undertones of like, oh, a corporation's buying out the lot and they're gonna demolish it, you know. And I realize we haven't addressed the plot at all of the Muppet movie. We should do that real quick. So, presuming an audience you've seen this one, it is about how the Muppets assemble basically and all make their way to Hollywood because there's an audition happening for frogs and other things. But kind of on the way, there is a fast food chain that is trying to get Kermit to become their mascot because they are a fast food that exclusively serves frog legs. And let's just talk about this real quick. Disturbed that you have this guy who wants him to be the the mascot. It is kind of like I'm trying to remember, like you'll have a restaurant that's like, what we have near us is a smaller chain called Mad Chicken, and the mascot is a chicken. And like whenever it's something like that, it's very odd that it's the animal you're eating saying, "Come eat me." Always creepy.
Super creepy. Like for some reason, you see this a lot with like barbecue or something. You'll see a pig like on a rotisserie smiling.
That's
like,
right.
Hey, come eat here. So
Right.
I always wondered about that, like if they came up with the idea because of logos like that, of just how bizarre that concept is.
Very uniquely American. American.
It is.
That's
You know, I hope so. I hope other countries aren't doing that as well.
Hey, possibly.
Because here's the darker side of this is, as a kid I saw that and my mind went to, I wonder what frog legs tasted like. And even though it was like I don't want Kermit to be fried, I still did become very curious. And I think there is kind of, well, it didn't work on me. I think Jim Henson is kind of talking to kids about maybe we don't eat animals and kind of raising some ethical concerns about vegetarianism. And that's, I think, a very cool thing to do. And just in general, kind of there's social issues being brought to it, which is kind of my understanding of something Jim Henson was always pretty focused on.
I
But
got it. I mean,
it didn't work on me. I still wanted to frog legs.
Fair. I think well, that's a really interesting point about the ethical things of animals, but even to his credit of like just commodifying things and like that being an icky feeling in the movie, and the commodification of what the audience will see as a pure character, which is Kermit, like being exploited, and then also the ties to Hollywood in that regard. Like I think it's very talking about exploitation in that way. Like we Seth and I always talk about like how Jordan Peele's Nope kind of revisited that idea and brought it up as like could be truly a thing of horror of commodifying in that way, but also that idea of Hollywood kind of spitting you up and chewing you out, I think is an enemy in this movie too.
Yeah, and I would say that's also really consistent with the Muppet Show. I think that was kind of always part of Jim Henson's focus, because even with the Muppet Show, it's all very patched together within the show. Like the costumes are all patched up. It's not, and that's not intentionally, you know, it's not these big glamorous things. It's not the Sonny and Cher show.
Right.
So it's certainly, I think what is so, it's a great message, but it's so endearing about the Muppets is that they do this for the sheer love of it. You know, that's the whole point of all of it. It's because, you know, they love to perform. They love putting on these shows with their friends. It's not because they're trying to make $1 million.
Right. Well, even like, you know, the ending that they've made it to Hollywood in time. Not really, but you know, they have the audition, they're given the Wealth of Fame package, and then Kermit's directing them, you know, that they're not being bossed around by anybody to do a commercial. they're doing their own show. And it's what we expect the Muppets to be doing. They're having costumes and putting together sets to sing a song. That's very sweet and enduring.
It's like the happy ending of children's idea of Hollywood, or like the idea of making it big that it kind of like there's a wink wink there too, because we kind of know that that's not, I mean, that's a fantasy in of itself, unfortunately for Hollywood, but to see it purely like out of they want to be stars and have that vaudevillian like spirit behind it is really that's the sweet part of it to me.
The villain here, Doc Hopper. I knew I recognized him. Charles, I knew I recognized him from seeing something recently. Charles Durning, who is kind of doing a pretty fun, campy Southern businessman who's always kind of wearing the white suit, the loose tie
Colonel
thing. And I realized I had
Sanders-esque.
exactly kind of the Colonel Sanders plus a hat. And I realized I
Right.
had just rewatched Oh Brother We're Out There, where he's basically the same guy, but is swearing a lot more and then complete
Oh
and
yeah.
like
Oh, that's
40
right.
years
He's the
later.
one running.
Yeah,
Yeah, running for office.
yeah, he's Pappy O'Daniel.
Oh my
So
God, right. I forgot about that.
yeah, almost
Yeah, you're
literally
right.
the
It's the
same
exact
cross,
same character.
Might be a
right?
typecast.
So and
That
he nailed it. He's great at it. So
right.
typecast, but also it seems like a fun character to do, especially if
He's
you're chasing the Muppets.
it's his craft. That's his specialty.
Exactly. I can't speak for his full filmography, but he's good at doing that. Just think about what you were saying, Megan, about this kind of being like the idealized version of Hollywood, of
Hmm.
being have this self-referential scene of Kermit's nephew asking, "Is this really what happened?" And him saying, "Kind of." This kind of acknowledgement of even within the Muppet world, this is a fictionalized account. This is kind of the idealized version. And also, I love how chaotic the screening room that they're watching this is. Like animals just
Yes.
eating seats, and that's not even the craziest thing that's happening there.
Right.
People are being shot out of a cannon. The Muppets are being as crazy as you want the Muppets to be while they're watching their own movie. I love that.
Hmm. Hmm.
Okay, folks, I think we're gonna go around here with closing thoughts and move on to recommendations. So, Jamie, we'll start with you.
Closing thoughts. Well, like I said, it's just pure nostalgia for me. But as you were just saying, with everything, all the chaos going on while they're even watching the film, it's part of what I love about the film and about the Muppets of just be who you are. They just
Hmm.
nobody ever questions why anybody's doing anything else. It's just pure acceptance, and I think it's so rare, even for shows back then for kids. So I think it's just overall awesome.
Yes.
Megan.
Sure. I want to speak as the adult in the room who hadn't seen the Muppets yet as a child, but even as an adult, I mean, it feels very nostalgic. Like this movie has a nostalgic factor that is just a part of like it. I think I didn't have to have watched. It didn't detract that I didn't see it as a kid. In fact, it's kind of was a really fun watch for me as an adult to kind of see these. There are adult like specifically things and a lot of good adult innuendo going on in the Muppets that is kind of a really rare lost art, I think, in kids film. I was such a Disney kid myself too, like 90 Disney Renaissance, if you will, kid. And while those are touted as being good for the whole family, like everybody enjoyed it, including my family, like my parents did enjoy those films as much as we did as young children. I think Muppets in particular, it has kind of a little bit more of an adult edge to it that I now really like. But still that childhood sweetness, that childhood like fantasy element that I also hold really near and dear to my heart. So it was such a fun watch for me, like as a right now, right in this very moment of my life. So if you need it, if you want that feeling, oh, watch this movie. You're gonna love it.
Fantastic. And yeah, I just have to agree with both of you. There is, like you said, Jimmy, such a great sense of for kids being yourself. And I think that's a great point because one of the reasons this movie really makes me emotional too is because I think like many kids didn't really have media telling me that that was okay. And you don't have parents in this is because they are kind of kids, but they're adults. They're definitely a character that kids can relate to, but nobody is putting them to bed. Nobody's telling them what to eat. So you do have that kind of imagined freedom as well, where you as a kid can see yourself in Kermit and Piggy, whoever. And yeah, it's crazy how bad so many kids movies are when it comes to messaging. Even like a recent kind of big hit like the Super Mario movie doesn't really say anything. It's like it's fine. It's a movie made $1 billion. And it's not like it's horrible, but it's like there's no positive message for kids here. Like Mario wins because he found the right mushroom is kind of what happens in that movie. There's no positive message that you can kind of take home and sink your teeth into that works for ages. So it does really feel like a lost art that Jim Henson and his crew really just mastered. So it's a delightful watch. Moving on to recommendations, Jamie, as our guest, you will start us off after people watch the Muppet Movie. What do they watch next?
Obviously the Great Muppet Caper, but for one scene in particular, there is this amazing Busby Berkeley-esque, Esther Williams-esque water ballet scene with Piggy.
Oh, that's right.
That has Charles Grodin, who is flirting with Piggy, and Kermit both singing to her in this sort of operatic duet. And it is chef's kiss perfection. It's so over the top and ridiculous that it's worth watching. It's also incredible because it takes place in London, and Charles Grodin plays the sister of this very high fashion British woman, but he's got no British accent whatsoever. Like it's really so disjointed at times that it's hilarious. But that scene alone, like that scene is just incredible.
That's a great one. Charles Grodin is doing such his own unique, weird thing that I don't think anybody else can kind of pull off in that movie. That's works really well for a Muppet movie.
It's absolutely fantastic, that scene.
There's also the movie. I think it's that one that has multiple jokes about how Fozzie and Kermit are twins.
Yes. Oh my.
And
yes, they're newscasters who are terrible.
Wear hats. Yeah, that's right.
Nobody can tell them apart.
It's such a weird
funny.
joke. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Very funny.
It's a great, perfect, weird joke. I think that's another thing. Obviously, it's the Muppets, so there's some weird jokes that you would kind of expect by the concept. There's some really great, just absurdist jokes in the Muppets that I love. Okay, Megan, your pick. I'm presuming your non-Muppet pick, which is
it's non-Muppet. Well, actually, do you want to go, Seth, for your pick? Because I don't want to derail us from the Muppet Beautiful Universe.
We'll go every other. We'll sandwich it in. That's fine.
Okay, sure, that's fine then. Because it relates certainly. I wanted to pick another film that was technically for children, but was also very much wink towards adults, which for me growing up was Who Framed Roger Rabbit. I mean, it had this very similar tendencies for it to me. I mean, Who Framed Roger Rabbit is quite adult. I'll say it was probably more adult than the Muppets for me, but I think that it has that similar lost art quality of this is a twofer. Like, this is very much for both children and adults, and kind of for obvious reasons. It was one of those where you kind of, as a kid watching it, you're like, is this okay to be watching, kind of thing, if you had a bit of like helicopter parents like I did. But I think for anybody growing up at that time, it was kind of and even for this was another one that either the rights got acquired by Disney later on, but Disney has a whole ride dedicated to Roger Rabbit, and it has a weird kind of Marvel multiverse quality in that it's taking a bunch of cartoons from different different studios and stuff like that. So seeing that going on was kind of like the original, it reminds me of Marvel now that I said it, the original multiverse theory going on here. And that alone as kids was just so exciting. It reminds me too, there was a Big Bird scene in Muppets, so they did a little wink to that as well. Like, I think that cheekiness is very fun, and a lot of cheekiness going on in Who Framed Roger Rabbit. Jessica Rabbit, whatever have you. So that was my that came to mind immediately watching this movie for me as like that pick that stood out.
And also that was Bob Hoskins, right? Who was a great actor, So again, I just love that these serious actors show up in films like this and knock it out of the park. They're fantastic.
Correct. Mm-hmm. Very self-serious about it, like it not a beat out of line for everybody, including the animations. So that was great.
And like that is Arch as a cop character is a lot more interesting than I expected. He plays it so sincerely, Bob Hoskins, in that movie, that movie was way better than I expected it to be. That's one I kind of put off watching, didn't watch until pretty recently, actually. It was great. It's like, I don't think any movie's done better with the animation live action mix, like what's the other Space Jam or something, so it's
Right.
been done very well, and yeah, Bob Hoskins is fantastic in that. And another one, just like, it's so crazy that they did that in terms of the people working on it, the animation. And if you've seen like the behind the scenes of that, of like what Bob is doing when there's clearly not a cartoon character there, it's kind of a weird
Yeah.
puppeteer thing that he's talking to. It's more effective than a green screen when it comes to pretending things
Yeah.
there.
And I think it's just a movie that wouldn't get made like now, to be honest. Like, again, talking about that lost
Yeah.
art thing, but it seems like it's been difficult for Hollywood to kind of capture that again.
I think that's very true.
Mhm.
Yeah. Okay, going back to the Muppets after a well-deserved diversion, Megan. Great on brand recommendation here. I'm going to go the Muppet Christmas Carol, which is a little bit later Muppet movie. Jamie, you're a fan as well?
Again, because of Michael Caine.
Right. I mean, again, this is kind of perfect. Like, Michael Caine is my favorite. I'm blanking my character. Oh my god.
Ebenezer
Yeah,
Scrooge.
thank you. Sorry. What a moment. Ebenezer Scrooge. He plays Ebenezer Scrooge just like he would in a stage production or any other bigger budget movie. And apparently, I didn't know this, the costumes are apparently very accurate, historically accurate for that period. The designers were very serious about that. Like, the sets and everything are historically accurate. And you have that level of attention that you kind of expect from a British movie period piece that you would hope for. And it is that plus the Muppets. And again, it's as, I kind of have mixed feelings about Charles Dickens in general, but I do love that story, and I think this is by far my favorite version of it. It just works so well. It gets all the heavy points that the story still has, which are very heavy. These are very intense themes, and Michael Caine plays it heartbreakingly, but is also singing and dancing with Muppets, and it's great. So that is definitely a yearly watch for in the Boyd household.
Yeah, he is absolutely fantastic in that.
And he sings, and it's such a perfect, like, he's not exactly a great singer, but it's such a sweet song that he's singing so earnestly that scene works much better than most scenes where a actor who's not known for singing is singing. There's definitely been some missteps of that over the years, but that one works so well. Okay, well, folks, that kind of does it in terms of films that we're talking about for now. But as we mentioned, Jamie's a very impressive person with a whole line of impressive things we need to talk about. But firstly, I think we want to talk about your merch line with the very fun title. Jamie, can you describe what kind of inspired it?
Rage, just pure rage. So basically it was yeah, it was just seeing what's been happening in this country. Obviously we've been in pretty rough shape for a while, and I don't think it was any better, to be honest. I think things just came to a head when certain behaviors were normalized. And the overturn of Roe v. Wade, to see what has happened to women in certain states who are forced to give birth to non-viable fetuses, it's just beyond torture. So basically, this was my response to what's been happening in Florida with banning drag queens and banning books. And this is my way of letting out some rage creatively and trying to make money to donate. So that's what Hey There Sweet Cheeks is. And the name actually comes from Mel Gibson's rant. I don't know if you remember this, many years ago when he went on an anti-Semitic rant and then called a cop sugar tits. So yeah, it was great.
I forgot that element of the rant, but I do remember the rant.
Yeah, I remember the phrase
sugar tits. Mel Gibson is terrible.
Yeah. So
how could we forget?
Hey There Sweet Cheeks is just kind of like a nod to those who talk down to us and who feel entitled to say things like that when it's completely wildly inappropriate. So yeah, we have totes, t-shirts, hoodies with different sayings, such as quotes from a former president whose name I'm not going to mention right now. I'm sure you know who I'm talking about. And
Yep.
the one that seems to be the most popular is the Florida WTF.
That was fun.
Yeah.
Fun one.
Yeah. So that's what Hey There, Sweet Cheeks is about. Trying to move the needle back a little bit.
That's fantastic. And we're definitely going to have a link to this in the
Absolutely.
episode. I do love on your homepage, spoiler alert, we donate to leftist causes. I really like I just want to say I really like using the word leftist there. I only have a couple people in my life who are opposite of me politically, who will often refer to me as a liberal. Like, I am not a liberal. I am a leftist. I am a socialist. Like, you don't understand who you're even talking to here, and everything you're saying about liberals does not apply to me. So you
Right.
don't even
I am
respect
not
me
a
to learn
Democrat.
what views are. Yeah, exactly.
I am not a Democrat. Like, I take that
Yeah.
and go way far left. Like, that's, and I
Exactly.
understand how I feel is how I believe is not for everybody, and that's fine.
Right.
But I feel like we're
Sure.
necessary just to move things back a little bit from this hijacking of a theocracy that's been going on.
Absolutely. It's a terrifying times, but it is also, as much as there are the horrible things happening as reference, it is nice to see some things happening like Minnesota and the state of Wisconsin that are moving even lefter, more blue.
Yeah.
Happy to see that. Happy to see some more smaller changes, and very optimistic about where things can go. And especially by purchasing this material and donating to these causes. Are you designing these as well,
Yep.
Jaime?
Yep.
Oh my.
Yep.
That's fantastic. They're
Yep, that's all me.
very, very cool.
It's all me, from the design to the
Fantastic.
website to everything. That's all me.
Oh.
Apparently, I have too much time on my hands.
I mean, if
No.
if someone writes a book about you, it's all me should be the title, because you were doing so many things here.
Yes, I applaud your voice, and I appreciate the humor in at least being able to find some humor in that, and in something that is scary. I mean, hey, Muppets right there. Muppets tenement of that sweetness coming through. That's a human spirit thing that will help me get through it. So appreciate you and appreciate your voice in that.
Thank you. I appreciate that. It's I just kind of feel like sometimes you have to recognize the absurdity of everything that's happening. And if that helps sell some stuff to make donations, even better.
Yes, ma'am.
Absolutely. Would you like to highlight some of the causes that are being donated to via the merch, Jaime?
Yeah, overarchingly, it's body autonomy, because that I feel like covers a lot of ground right there. From bans on gender affirming therapies and surgeries to abortion bans. I feel like body autonomy is the biggest one, because if you don't have control over your physical body, you have zero control. It's just, you have no rights.
Yeah.
So that's the overarching one, but then also voter education, because younger people, thank God, seem to be correcting things as much as they can. But why is it on an 18-year-old to fight the NRA? It's completely absurd. So,
I agree.
I even put on there, no surprise, this is dead serious. I would love for a gun ban. I'm not talking about reasonable, gun laws. I'm like a ban on assault rifles, completely a ban. So anything that causes that can push back against the NRA and National Organization for Women and Planned Parenthood are two of the main organizations, but then anything that can fight the NRA as well, and voter education.
I do just want to, on the note of the NRA, I want to share something that a point a person made in the argument I overheard about the type of person who thinks they have the gun for protecting themselves from the government. As someone politely pointed out, what do you think your assault rifle is going to do against like a drone? When someone can kill you, being thousands of miles from you because you're a problem. This fantasy of American uprising that you, red-blooded, red flag flying person, need to protect yourself is you can't stand against the military. It's a very silly thing to exist. You don't need it. Fully agree with the ban on the assault rifles and more. And apologies, Megan, for talking over you there. I just want to highlight this very important stuff you're doing, Jaime. So we really appreciate you coming on the show here to talk about this.
Absolutely. Happy to spread the word on this.
I do want to just, if you don't mind, highlight your writings as well. Jaime and I met through the wine world. You can be found on winetraveler.com. You have several articles there. They're very informative. You also have 2 books out. The first one is Salt and Ash and Honey and Magic, a memoir. Would that be the best word, maybe?
Yeah. Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
How we actually
go
know
ahead.
each
Sorry.
other. Yeah, is
Yes.
through my late husband is the connecting point here,
Mm.
through the wine world and my late husband. So that's how Seth and I met, and that's what the memoir is about. It's about losing him.
Yes.
Mhm.
I wanted to. I hope I'm not making it uncomfortable talking about it, Jamie, but
No.
it's such a beautiful book, and it's you describe having one among the worst years a human can have, and
Mhm.
processing that, and it was truly tragic. And again, so sorry for your loss. Having not had that year, but having in the same way that all people do grief, I think particularly having lived through COVID, I found that to be such a comforting read
Oh,
and
thank
such an
you.
informative
Beautiful.
one. So I think everyone should read this book. Honestly, you might not think you need it, but you do. It's a beautiful, insightful book, and it's a great reminder of you don't need to have the exact experience to be deeply touched and informed by something. That's what art is. That's what language is, and it's such a
Mhm.
profound read. And I felt the same way about your second book, Explorations of Grief, the first year, which is kind of more of a workbook book, I think, and it's similarly very helpful. I finished that recently, and fantastic. A lot of
Thank you.
lessons in there that, even though I didn't really say have a recent loss in particular, it was very moving and very informative and helped me realize what was going on with myself. And uh, it's 2023, folks. It wasn't that long ago that we all had a horrible thing happen to us.
Correct.
We all lost people. I think you all owe it to yourselves to kind of explore that. So these books will also be links to it because very insightful stuff. And I want to also highlight, particularly as a person who's not religious, you really gave some great avenues for how to think about and how to talk about that for
Mm.
people who you can't just say they're in a better place, or you can't
Mhm.
just tell yourself that. So very informative.
Thank you.
Hey.
That was a main reason why I got into grief coaching, was because as a non-believer, it's very, very
Yeah.
difficult to find support. So yeah, the explorations with grief came out of my own experience, but then I've been grief coaching now for a few years, and these are kind of themes that I've noticed in the first year that a lot of people experience or think through. And to be able to explore them a little bit more deeply without religion, I think actually kind of builds more self-sufficiency, because you're not relying on this higher power to save you. It has to come from yourself.
You are doing
Yeah.
some important work. I always think about the fact that we are all connected. If there's one thing that everybody has, is that we are going to experience grief. Every single person on this planet is going to, and we are not all the same backgrounds of what that will look like at the end, religiously or whatever have you. So that, we have to continue our daily lives on this earth.
Right.
How's that going to look? That it's so important. I think it's crazy to me that grief is kind of a taboo subject, that death is kind of a taboo subject in this country
Yeah.
still, which is amazing, but how we cope with it to here, like on this plane of existence, is really fascinating to me, and really, really, really important work. So thank you for that.
Well, yeah, I mean, to your point, if we are here right now, the
Mhm.
only two things that every single human has in common is that we have been born and that we will die.
Mhm.
And the fact that we don't talk about the second part of it is really kind of bizarre.
Right.
Yeah.
Tell me about it.
Right.
Anne and I recently saw a touring exhibit that was at the Chicago Field Museum that it was Death, the Greatest Unknown. I believe it's the title, something like that. But it is about cultural practices all over the world about death. And it is informative to just remind ourselves that while obviously no one has the answer, other cultures do talk about it more than we do
Yeah.
in Western culture, particularly in America.
Yeah, very
And
much so.
it's
Yeah.
right. And it's good to remind ourselves it's not like, oh, what are you going to do? Nobody else has it figured out. People have a lot more rituals figured out than we do, a lot more cultural practices,
Right.
and have more comfort. So, Jamie, thank you for let's do that. And that got heavy. I hope it was okay to bring all that
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I talk about it all the time.
up. I think about him often.
Yeah, I know, he was the
Um,
best. He was the best.
we have not found as, even though there's a big German population out here in Milwaukee, and there's a lot of German restaurants, none of them are as good as Spice Sakama.
Anytime I would
But
come home and he would tell me that it was going to be German night, I was like, I'm about to eat really well, because he would just go all out and like
yeah.
and make the spätzle, like everything would be so good. Yeah.
Oh man. I think I just need to start doing that. I need to learn how to make spätzle and spätzle and everything.
Yeah, he was my husband was a chef, so I was very spoiled. Yeah, very spoiled for a while.
That's a goal.
Wonderful.
That's a dream.
Yeah, I was spoiled for a lot of reasons, but definitely I was very well fed for many years.
Okay, folks, thank you so much for listening. You have your homework cut out for you in terms of films to watch, great merchandise to buy. We're talking t-shirts, mugs, everything and everything. You know, fill your house with this stuff and donate to some great causes, and books to read. Thank you again so much, Jamie, for coming on the show. It's great to talk to you, and it's great to have you here for supporting this great work that you're doing. We're very
Well,
happy.
thank you so much. Yeah, thanks, guys. This is great.
All right. Well, folks, that'll do it for now.
Bye.
Fingers me home, diddy hoo, gonna say do. Jeber spear, horn, gear, skirten, bort, bort, bort. English beer, der Swedish meatball. You, es beer, der salts, the meatball.